Hello and welcome to the channel. And as you could see, once again, I am on the way to work. And as I record this in Lucille. Look at the sunset going down there. Yep, at night. And I got a little bit of a shadow over me. I figure being that this is this kind of review where it's a little bit ominous and suspenseful, that I would make this video ominous and suspenseful. So, I'm going to talk about the short animated film. Well, not necessarily short, it's about an hour and some change. Animated film that accompanied one of my favorite games of all time, Dead Space. Dead Space, to give you a history of this, because unlike most videos, this film has been out for a while, and so I can tie some history behind the making of this project. And that is, Dead Space was a game that came out back in an era when the survival horror genre was really strong and quite marketable. And one of the most marketed games was the Resident Evil franchise, and then you had Silent Hill, and you had a couple of other ones. But those were the two, like, big names. No one had really come out to take the crown um, from these games until one day someone came along and created Dead Space. Dead Space is a survival horror video game that in many ways changed the genre because it took the concept of a Resident Evil and a Silent Hill and it turned it up to about a 10, adding in a space type of setting, a strong narrative, and instead of the whole zombie thing, which has been done to death, we get more of a oh man, this glare's in my eyes. There we go. Sorry about the glare. We get more of a real feel. Sorry about that. I'm in my parking lot. Thought I saw police cars, but then I realized that my lighter makes the same kind of, if you could see it in the background, my lighter does this little strobe effect because I have got my charger in there, and it's kind of funny. It looks like cop cars behind me, but not to worry. The SJWs have not found me yet. Little joke for anyone who knows my rants about those. Anyways, this movie ties into that game in the sense that this game was like a survival horror in space. And unlike most games, instead of having zombies, which had been done to high heavens, or evil entities, or anything like that, that they were spinning off, these were parasitic-like organisms where the host was completely dead. The host had no higher function. The creatures had taken control and essentially changed the physical aspect of the person. And now there were two running storylines. One, that an artifact that we find called a marker, which essentially looks like a giant egg, but it's got like weird branching shapes. Anyone who wants to look it up, you could see the images. Once my videos get better, I could give you like a side-by-side comparison. Probably not for my car. But overall, this thing would drive people crazy. And the invasion took place in two stages. The first stage was it would drive people mad. The second stage was someone would kill themselves and then their body would corrode, and this corruption would later reanimate the body, and they would become these creature-like things that were like its attack force. Already you can tell this story has so many layers connected to it. Now, take into account that this is a two-tiered story and you're not even adding the characters in yet. So, the main plot of this is heavily rooted in the game, which is why I bring the game up. But in the video game, there is a sort of, I guess you would call him a welder, a dude who fixes ships, and his name is Isaac. And there's a ship called the Ishimura, who sends out a distress beacon, and his ship intercepts that beacon. Now, on the ship, he answers the beacon, and he's part of these people called riggers who have all of this equipment to fix stuff. And his wife was on the ship, or I can't remember. I think it was wife or ex-wife, or they were having problems. They were sort of working it out, and he takes this mission as both to figure out what's going on in the ship and to try to find and save her. Now, this particular story takes place in between that time period, and it tells you what happens to the Ishimura before our protagonist arrives. And it introduces us to a new antagonist in the form of Vincent, who is actually a girl. Kind of weird double name thing there, but not to worry. This does not go in an SJW kind of scenario. This is before the identity politics. So on this, she has got a group of special ops type of people who oversee and make sure that these people who are working are protected. And this ship is what they call a planet cracker. They crack planets open, they go in search of these markers, and they try to home them and bring them in. And religion plays a part in this because there's these people called unitologists, which, funny story, kind of sounds like Scientologist, but that's a video for another day. And these unitologists believe that these markers are holy relics left by an ancient beings who want to give us their knowledge and that we're all going to ascend and yada, yada, yada. And the military wants these because these beacons contain great power within them. Little do they know, there is an alien being controlling these things, and that their whole thing is to be discovered, to infect living hosts, and to thrive and go from planet to planet. Now, when we first come to this story, this thing is dormant for years, and in an aliens kind of fashion, we unearth it through cracking the planet open. Now, there's a lot of main characters to cover in this, but I will cover just the ones that I find relative to moving the story along. But let's just say there is a colonel who, I forget his name, but he has rather murky motives, I would say, for why he's doing it. There's a doctor who's a man of science, who's aboard as the counterbalance and gives a scientific opinion. And then you have the officers and things like that. And they get to the surface, they find this marker, and everything's hunky-dory. Now, as they start removing this thing from the surface, something strange happens. A worker just goes mad. He goes crazy and pretty much kills everyone that is part of the, they call them cracking crews, to try to get rid of this, the rock around the artifact so that they can take it with them. And he goes mad and just attacks everyone. And they chain him up and they sedate him. But as they go, this dude can't be held by normal restraints, and they give him a ridiculous amount of sedatives that barely subdue him. And this is where this story is so interesting. And if you haven't seen it, you can watch it on YouTube. There is the full-length thing. This animation is not for kids. This is an adult animated piece to follow an adult game or a much older audience game. I'd say in the reign of teenagers, whoever the demographic is for like a Resident Evil kind of thing. This is the game's companion, and this story is riddled with violence and strong language, so it's not for kids. But with that being said, I'm going to jump right into my pros. And my pros here is that this is a strong story. We talk about this notion all the time about strong female characters. This woman who is in this film, who is our main protagonist, by the end of it, even if you are a fan of the game, you are cheering for her. You want her to succeed because we see her losing all of these people. We see her getting beat several times. I mean, there are special forces men who literally throw her on the ground and stuff, and despite all of her training, she almost gets killed several different times. in this story. So she's got that vulnerability where she doesn't feel invincible. She feels like a character who's a soldier, who's there to do a job, who's getting paid, and who's caught in this really terrible situation, and she can't figure it out, but she has a commitment to the mission. The mission is to make sure the people survive. She doesn't care about the artifact. She doesn't care about what the government angle is in the story. She doesn't care about the military's interest in bringing this dangerous artifact back to Earth. She wants to make sure that her crew lives. That is her driving goal. That is her motivation. The security of the people aboard this ship. And to the very end, she exemplifies that drive and courage. And that, to me, made her one of the most compelling characters, because she didn't go, oh, I'm a female, so I'm better than all of these males. She loses her male counterparts, which you could see chips away at the strong fortitude she has at the beginning of the story. And the crux of this whole story is that this thing infects people with a weak will. And even though you can hold out against the persuasion of this artifact that's telling you all these crazy thoughts and trying to get you to kill yourself to become one of them, she has a strong mind and she's fighting this. But as she starts to lose her comrades, it's chipping away at her will, pretty much as the design of whatever this thing is, which I can only guess is alien in some sort of way. Now, the second positive is the creatures. I got tired about this time of the same zombie tropes where you had Walking Dead, and you had, or even before Walking Dead, you had like Resident Evil, you had Dawn of the Dead and Night of the Living Dead, and all of these that were doing the zombie genre. These are not zombies. This is a biological organism that is created from dead tissue. Think of it kind of like as its own life form. Only instead of feeding on a living host, it feeds on dead cells. And as an effect, it brings back the dead. Then it feeds on living cells. It's a really weird dynamic. But essentially, it reanimates from dead tissue and then wills the host to go after people who are alive to sustain the dead tissue. So there's a scientific explanation for it all. I'm no scientist because I can't explain, but somehow from how I heard it, it just seems to work. And who cares? This is the plot device. This is the thing that drives the story. But the psychological aspect also drives the story of people not trusting people, people flipping out, people starting to say really weird and random things like, talking about how someone's trying to outdo them for a promotion and you want this for your own gain. I mean, it gets crazy. And I think that that's the second part of this piece, is that humanity's own greed is what drives these creatures. These creatures use our own greed and insecurity against us, which I know has been a running theme, but this is done eerily well. The other great thing about these creatures are, unlike zombies, you can shoot them a billion times, even in the head. Because the body's already dead, it doesn't work. So these things have to be destroyed by quite literally dismembering the whole entire body. And I found this interesting because up till now, no game that was associated with a film in the zombie genre had done anything like this. This was the first game that got a lot of flack because of the fact that they added a Saw thing where you had to take apart these creatures and literally stop them completely or they'd keep coming after you. And the film conveys this beautifully. It is terrifying. I watched this in the dark just to get the effect, and just the eerie thing of these creatures are pretty much almost indestructible. And the artifact piece is that even if you beat the creatures, this beacon is driving you insane while you're doing it, and losing people is driving you insane. And the beacon feeds off of a weak will. So the more people you lose, the more it breaks down your will, the closer you are to either losing your mind or losing your life. And those are terrible scenarios. Um, but to my cons, I don't have very many cons about this film. The animation is stunning. The voice acting is brilliant. It's spot on. I mean, some of it's kind of cheesy at times with the girl and some of the things she says. Some of the cursing is kind of feels forced just to give it that edgy feel. But I mean, I'm really nitpicking here. The animation is great. The story is paced well. It has a beginning, middle, and end. The only other downside to this film is that you really need to play Dead Space to get the final connection and be wooed. I remember when this came out, uh, I had already played Dead Space, and if you see this, you go, "Oh, now I get why this, and this happened in the game," and you kind of get a little bit more. If you've never played Dead Space and you're taking this as its own standalone thing, it feels like the ending feels like there should be more, and there is. It's Dead Space, the game. So I would say if you watch this, this is a good reason to go back through to PS or 2 or the Xbox One, pull out that copy of Dead Space and throw it in there and start playing it because this was an excellent game for its time. Also, my cons is that I feel like certain characters weren't fleshed out enough. There were a lot of people that they introduced on this squad, and I felt like they were throwaway. They should have went more detailed into why they were so connected to Vincent and why her squad was so tight knit. Like maybe talk about a few missions and things that brought them together. Because that, I mean, you feel the bond with certain characters, but not all of them. Some of them, I'm like, yeah, I could see why they turn against them because I don't see their loyalty. But other than that, this film is great. This is how animation should be done. And it's sad that animation is 9 out of 10 times getting better than actual regular movies because you don't see studios putting in the same things in their animated films that they do their major box office films. And that's why I've started critiquing a lot of anime and animation in general, is because the animation market is different and it has a different audience. And therefore, sometimes you don't see as many of the politics thrown in there unless it's by a big name studio. And even like DreamWorks and Pixar's and stuff like that, sometimes they're good about keeping that stuff out, but they're getting bad too. This is a completely different company. They had nothing to do with any major company. They made this little project to go along with this game. You can watch it on YouTube. It's a great film. It's called Dead Space: The Downfall. And even if you've never played the game, this gives you good context as to what the game is about. And standalone, it's awesome. I mean, by the time you get to the end of this and you see what happens and you're pulling for this character, I feel like the emotion that they yank from you is like big budget stuff. Like you're invested, and by the time you get to the end, you go, "Wow, that's how it goes." And the best part is there still is a lead-in from the game because anyone who knows the game knows that towards the end, when you have that last shot out, you see a ship going towards their ship, and it says, "Ishimura, are you there? Is anyone there?" And he's like, I forgot the name of the ship, but he says, "This is such and such." Requesting permission to board, and that's Isaac from the first game coming to the ship. So you assume that these events that happened are literally probably hours before the initial start of the game. So, I mean, well crafted, well done, beautifully artistically rendered, powerful emotional message, good themes, good writing, excellent concept. Watch Dead Space Downfall. It's on YouTube. You can pretty much watch the whole thing for free, but it is great to kill an hour and to just see really fine quality film at its best. Great artistic license. a company that cares about a product and puts their heart into it, even though they knew that this little hour piece wasn't going to be a big, major, blockbuster cash cow. They put their hearts and soul into this hour piece, and it shows. And anyone who watches it knows that this is well made. It's well drawn. It's well acted, and they feel the passion that these people have, and that's what Hollywood lacks. They lack the passion. So what's up? Catching me at the end of my live stream, but but anyways, yeah. This film is really good. It shows a lot of passion, and if you want to kill, uh, oh yeah, 30 Days a Night was the same way. I've been meaning to do a piece on that myself too, because 30 Days a Night was another you know box office flop that Hollywood would have you believe, because God forbid we don't have like a strong female character just charging through the way. Yeah, the story was along the same lines. But anyways, yeah. So this was my review on Dead Space Downfall. I did this for someone on the channel, and like I said, I take requests. So my next one that I want to do is Shaun of the Dead, because I said I would do that next. And I'm going to be doing a review on Greta as well, because that's a newer film that came out. And I am going to bite the bullet for you all and see that I'm sure is going to be a train wreck, Captain Marvel, when it comes out. I'm going to need a prayer for that one, because I'm really going to suffer through those 2 hours. But I'm going to see it for you to be the first to give you a non-biased review on what the deal is with this Captain Marvel controversy. I will tell you whether there is feministic politics in it or not. And I am going to, oh my God, do something that's never been heard of. I'm going to review it based on the merits of the movie. Oh Lord, God forbid we do that. So, once again, this is Lee. Thank you for everyone who's watching. Please subscribe to the channel. Please tell everyone that you know about my channel. Tell them that I do these wacky videos, and Lucille, yep, she's the main star, and that I do non-biased critiques, and that I do take requests on even older movies, and I review them here on the channel for you. I look up the history, and I give you the in-depth, and if it's good, I'll recommend it here. So until then, this is Lee. I'm literally at the movies where I work. I'm going to go in, punch in the clock, and work like the rest of the working man who watches these videos. But I love you all, and as always, I will see you